This is a really deep, fun, interesting topic, and it's something that I think about all the time, but I hardly ever talk about it. And I think it's something that is, this concept is very much a part of like popular culture and society now. We don't think about it as much, but there are some people still that I think are like I was when I first heard about it and are still blown away by it. So it's basically this idea of the Matrix. So we live in the Matrix. You know this, right? And it does not necessarily have to be this nefarious like robot thing, but it is the truth. It's one of the only truths that we know, is that what we think we see and what we think we experience is all nonsense. This is all an illusion. And this is a super ancient idea. It goes back, I'm sure, as soon as the first people started thinking about things. But in the ancient Hindu texts, the Upanishads, it's the idea of Maya is delusion and Atman is like reality and true nature. And Plato's allegory of the cave, where it's like you imagine being in a cave and all that you ever see is the projected shadows upon the cave wall, and like that being the only reality that you experience. And it's like in the movie The Matrix, where there's this super convincing, very entertaining, dramatic, and exciting existence that we have, and it keeps us distracted from reality. And I think this is a very interesting idea on a lot of different levels, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as dramatic as it is in The Matrix, where it's like this is this plot against humanity, and it's like really mean and scary. It's not even like that. It's just the reality that we live in. This is the way that the universe is set up, where we, even if you think about it on the simple level of science, we only have the ability to perceive certain things. A limited number of dimensions, a limited number of senses, and even we can even devise tools that with science that can pick up other things even in this physical universe. Like even within the Matrix, there are things that we can't really comprehend. But even all that stuff is kind of just a distraction. So the distraction, I like to think about it, first of all, like what is it like? What is the nature of this delusion? And like, why is it there? And what do we do about it? So you can think of it like a dream. And we've all had dreams. If you have not had a dream, then you're weird. But this was made famous if you follow Eastern culture. You don't follow Eastern culture. This is like way back when, by one of my favorite philosophers I love talking about all the time, Chuang Tzu. And he said, I had a dream. I dreamt I was a butterfly, and I was flitting around and floating in all of my happiness of being a butterfly. And then I woke up, and I was Chuang Tzu. But then I questioned, was I Chuang Tzu dreaming that I was a butterfly, or was I a butterfly dreaming that I was Chuang Tzu? And that kind of question is like, it's confusing, and when you consider it, it kind of puts you in this different state of mind. It's almost like a koan, and just pondering that, like, am I real? And when I fall asleep, I have a dream, or is the dream real? And this right here is the dream. This is non-reality. The truth is, none of it is. But that's like what it would be like. Imagine if you could wake up from this, and feel like you just woke up out of a dream. It's like, what would that be like? What would you be? Who would you be? What kind of state would you be in to recognize that, to awake from the dream and like break free of this delusion? And my opinion, and the opinion of many people, is that is what enlightenment is. So all of this distraction, all of this that we live in, kind of serves as like it's like a challenge for us. There's a purpose to it. And we are deeply challenged by it. We live it fully. This is the only reality that we know, and it's almost impossible for us to conceive of something beyond that. But when we meditate, we get like a glimpse of it. So you close your eyes and you at least get rid of the visual part of the dream. If you bring your consciousness within, you can shut down the rest of your senses. You're not hearing, you're not smelling, you're not tasting. Your physical senses are kind of for a moment left behind, and then you just experience this stillness, this deep stillness. And even if it's for this long, and that's usually about how long it lasts, that's it. Like, you have essentially, on some level, for a quick moment, you've broken out of the dream and you've woken up. And then what happens is usually we have that experience, and then we think, oh, I'm doing it, this is amazing, and all of that thinking about that thrusts us right back into the dream. The I is the dream. It's the small I. The big I, which is like the oneness and the connection to everything, is what we experience when there's nothing there. And this is like when they say, what's behind the darkness of closed eyes, that stillness, is reality. And as soon as we start to grasp it, it slips right through our fingers. And it's because it's potent. This dream that we live in is so strong. And I like to think of a future day, someday, I hope it's not too far in the future, where I get to this place in my practice, in my meditation, where I can at will just leave the dream and be in reality and stay there for a while instead of just like tripping right back out right away. And that's what keeps me practicing and meditating. And I remember the first time that I meditated, and some of you guys have heard this story. I'm sitting there for the first meditation class at Sifu Brown School that I attended, and I sit super, strong. I'm sitting cross-legged, I think, for the only time that I ever did that, and I'm sitting still and I'm breathing, and I get the first experience of just feeling the breath, and that's it. All I have is breath in my consciousness. It's literally just the feeling of the breath coming in. And then as soon as I have that and all of the thoughts and everything else drops away, then I thrust right back into it, because then I think, I'm doing it, I'm meditating, this is amazing. And it lasted like literally that long. It was less than a second. It was probably less than 1/10 of a second. But I got it, and the rest of the meditation was awful. Part of it because I kept trying to go back to that state. I was chasing it. Part of it because I did not know how to sit well, and so I ended up curled up in a fetal position on the wall on the side of the room. But that tiny moment was enough for me to recognize, like, there's something to this meditation stuff that people have been doing for forever, and I'm going to do this. That was really the moment when I decided I'm going to meditate every day for the rest of my life, and I have. And every once in a while, I'll get an experience like that, and it's never exactly the same. It's always something slightly different, but it has the same flavor of this, where it is like breaking free of this reality and experiencing something else. And I want to talk about why it's impossible for us to do this on a regular basis, at least early on in our practice, and why it's still impossible for me to do it. And it's because we identify with the ego, we identify as the small self, And the ego's job on some level is to keep us alive. And in order to do that, it's got to create separation. And this is actually the end part of Chuang-Tzu's story, was he said, am I the butterfly or am I the man? There must be some distinction, or there's got to be some separation, right? And the truth is that perception of the separation between us and other people, or us and anything, us and the mats that we're sitting on, or the air that's flowing through, all of that is the ego. And the ego is super important. It keeps us alive. Without the ego, we would just stop taking care of ourselves and we walk out into traffic and like bad things would happen to us. But we have a tendency to be enslaved by this. So the ego loves to separate things out, and it loves to compare things. And this is what it is really good at doing. This is what our minds do. It's like, well, this is this, it's separate from this over here. This is me, I'm separate from you here. And while that serves that important purpose, it also kills off any possibility, while we're identifying as the ego, as the small self, it kills off any possibility of experiencing whatever is beyond this illusion, whatever is oneness, whatever is beyond separation, whatever is beyond all of this comparing and contrasting and judgment. So when we are trying to experience that deep state, when we are even thinking about like what is God or what is truth or what is beyond all of this, the problem is, one of many problems is, that we are always trying to compare it to something that we know. Because it's the ego, it's comparing. So it's like, well, what is that? Like, what is the oneness? And I'm going to compare it to my experience now of the non-oneness. And so you can kind of get some kind of a concept of it, right? But it's incomplete. And it doesn't have, it's not an experience. It's still just something, it's another form of illusion, basically, in our head. You can have this concept of trying to understand, like, what is God, but we're comparing this concept of God to the concept of what is not and what is us. And so we're kind of always extrapolating from our super limited and very, unreality existence. We're extrapolating from that what might be beyond it, and you can never get it. It's impossible. So this is like the trap. This is the trap that we live in, that we were born into, is always trying to compare from what we know to try to figure out other stuff. And that logical mind, it can't grasp it. So that's one of the reasons why we have to get it through meditation, because meditation is just letting all of that go. It just allows the ego to drop from us, and you just experience it in a breath, or you experience it in a moment of stillness beyond all of that. And when we get that, and we recognize that we are trapped in this delusion, then it kind of becomes like the Matrix, where we think like, okay, I got to take the red pill and I got to get out and experience reality. I got to break through this trap. There's no red pill. The closest thing to it is meditation. But even then, if we treat meditation as like, this is the thing that I'm going to use to break free of this trap and experience the vast, whatever the reality is beyond that, it can motivate us to practice, but on some level, we're still actually associating with ourselves, the trapped self. And we're thinking about, how can I break out of this trap? And you think of it like Plato's allegory of the cave, where these people are chained to the ground, or chained to the cave, and they can't leave, and they can't experience anything else other than the shadows. And so that makes you think like, I've got to break out of these chains and leave and escape. But that still means that you are identifying as that I, as that individual, as that thing that's trapped. But my suggestion here is radical. I'm sure somebody else has said it many times before. But as long as we're identifying as the thing that has to escape or the thing that's trapped, you will remain trapped forever. And on some level, simply all there is to do is to accept it. Like, accept this is where we are. This is what we live in. We are in this state of duality. We are in this illusion. And we're chained to the wall. And we're in the matrix. And that's it. And you accept it. Rather than trying to fight, and think of, I have to escape. So then what happens is you can like dissolve into it. Once I accept it, and once I recognize that it's okay for me to stop trying to fight and to stop, breaking free, then what I can do is, with that acceptance, allow myself, allow the ego, allow the separate small self to dissolve into the big self. And while that is still going to have the effect of breaking free, it is not getting at it from a place of, I am myself, small me, trapped, trying to fight and break free. Because you see how like that very thought of breaking out of something is what keeps us trapped. It's that very thought that makes us still think of ourselves as being the small individual thing. We recognize that, okay, I'm in the matrix, I'm Neo and I'm flying around and doing all this stuff and it's great and it's exciting, but I still know that it's a dream, so what am I going to do? Like, that's it. Like, when you can recognize that you're in it and recognize that it's a dream, it's like having, I've never done this, maybe one time I think, had a lucid dream where it's like I recognize I was dreaming, and then you get to just like fly around and play with it. This is a thing that people do. That's kind of what it becomes here. And you may or may not be able to just jump out of the window after meditation tonight and fly, but you can feel like you have settled in. You can feel like you have accepted. And that acceptance of the unreality is what takes away the fight and takes away the separation. And I'm basically just repeating myself now. But like that, I think, is the first step. So we see that there is something that we're trapped in. We see that there's some kind of a separation. We see that we are in this delusion. And then we have to accept it. And acceptance does not mean giving up. It's two very different things. Acceptance means that this is where I am. Acceptance is like I'm standing in the middle of the intersection, and if I'm pretending that I'm not, a car is going to hit me. But if I accept it, then I can choose, okay, well, now I'm going to go this way, and now I'm going to go this way. It's like finding your place. And then it can just kind of become fun, and then it can have this experience of ease. And I really believe that accepting it is what is going to help us no longer be trapped in our own concept, our own small concept of the self. So that's what we'll practice tonight. Usually when we think of meditating as getting to a goal of enlightenment, we think of it like it's a struggle. We think of it like I'm going to sit and I'm going to not let any thoughts happen, because that's the unreality that I want to break free of. But what we're going to do is just sit and just be super light and just allow everything to enter and exit of its own accord, right? Whatever the feeling, the sensation that we have is, whatever the thought that we have is, every breath that we take in and then let out, it's just going to be accepting it. And then we can relax and let it happen. And I think one day, we're just going to wake up. Sit comfortably.